Hello everyone, I'm Giuseppe Maggiore and welcome to what is perhaps my absolutely favorite course of the Academy so far, the Introduction to React. In this course, we're going to start from scratch and we're going to learn how to use React in order to build single-page applications that can run in the browser. We will use TypeScript as well, so we will lean on the Introduction to TypeScript course also found on the Grande Omega Academy. But if you already know TypeScript, good luck. In the first lesson, we're going to just start with an introduction about React. We're going to talk about when it was built, by whom, and for what reason. And we will also set up a simple client-server development environment. So we will see also how to set up from scratch the NPM package management pipeline. We will set indeed the little server package and the little server executable and the client executable and how to serve it to the browser. So this will be sort of a 0 to 100% introduction to basic to basic web development, if you want. Then we will look at a JavaScript extension, which is JSX, which extends the syntax of JavaScript and TypeScript to also contain HTML-like elements. We will talk about the document object model, that is the web page, how it is composed with these elements in a nesting structure, and we will see how React hooks into this and how we can extend this through React to build custom components. Then we will talk about how to put properties, how to put read-only contextual data into our components, so that we have some data that gets translated by some business or layouting logic into the DOM. But of course, it's not just about providing a context to these components, but applications are also supposed to change the data. So we will talk about stateful components and how components can store information in our React application in such a way that this information can change as events happen on the application. And events can be timers, but in many cases, events will be user-initiated events or API calls. And we will see how to do this in two ways. Classes, that is the old React way, which is still relevant for some edge cases, and the new, sexy, advanced, streamlined, functional programming-ish way, which is called hooks. Very pretty. Then, well, state management and isolation of components is actually very complicated, so we will dive a little bit into how to write proper components. And proper components simply means components that can be composed and where the state changes of the component are made explicit according to a model of immutable states that are hierarchically composable. This sounds a bit abstract, but it is very important because we want to build applications that are maintainable now and that stay maintainable in the future. Of course, web applications do not just live in the client, and asynchronous communication with a server is found in every single page application. That is, you need to read things from an API, you need to save things to an API, and this is usually done with promises. We will not see how to build an API because this is not a course on backend programming, just front-end programming, but we will see how, as a front-end engineer, we can use promises, we can mock promises, that is, create fake APIs on the client side, so that we can see how our application behaves when an API is abnormally slow, when it makes abnormally many mistakes, essentially simulating, for example, a bad connection on a mobile phone while driving through, while sitting in a train. We will see how to use async and await, and we will even discuss some of the very nasty pitfalls that are associated with closures and delays, because these things can come and bite you in the ass in ways that are absolutely terrifying, so we might as well get protected from these risks. Single-page applications pretend to be in a single page, but are still web applications. And web applications feature pages, mapping to different URLs. So you could have a home page, an about us page, a products page, etc. All with different URL structures and different query parameters. We will see how to use the React Router library to support this mapping of components and URLs for us. Now, until lesson 6, our application looks like crap intentionally. After lesson 7, it will look like crap, but I will do my best to try to compensate this. I have no design, let's say, no, my brain is really not made for design. Still. So this is really a best effort attempt and preview. I think it's decent, but I don't have the ability to judge this professionally. Anyway, what we're going to do in lesson 7 is we're going to use a CSS framework, Bootstrap in particular. It's an easy CSS framework, easy enough that even someone with my very limited skill set can actually get something decent out of it. And we will make our SPA look much prettier without having to become CSS wizards, because be careful, CSS is a gigantic topic on its own, and I'm not automatically saying that knowing CSS comes as a sort of secondary little easy thing to knowing React. React is one thing, TypeScript is another, APIs and backend are another, CSS is another. There are full stack developers who know all of them. I'm not claiming you're going to become a full stack developer with this course, just React and a little bit of CSS. But Bootstrap is going to do most of the heavy lifting. Finally, we're going to conclude our course on React with a very powerful, very important case study where we're going to deep dive into advanced forms. That is, forms where as you type, things are saved by a background API, validation happens in the background with error management, avoiding to flood the backend with too many API calls, etc. Lesson 8 will be the crown jewel of our React journey. It's advanced, it's elegant, it's powerful, it's challenging, and the result will be absolutely fantastic. So, thank you very much, and let's get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do today is I'm going to enter into this little folder, live coding, which as you can see is completely empty, and I'm going to set up the whole project. Okay, so first of all, a few words about React. Now, in React, we build so-called single-page applications. That is, applications where, well, the page doesn't really ever change. There's only just one home page, but the home page is very intelligent, much more than traditional websites that just give you a bunch of pages which are just dumb, dead, just a bit of HTML. You can view it and that's it. You click on a link and you get more HTML on another page. No. A single page application is just one page that is intelligent, that knows how to intelligently and dynamically adjust itself as the user clicks. And not the whole page, but just pieces of it know how to respond to the user interactions. Single page applications are a lot faster because they don't need to reload the whole page at every click. They're also a lot smarter because they can compute stuff on the client side without having to go back and forth to the browser for everything, like some client-side validation, for example, of forms, products, recalculation of prices, can be done as a preview at least before validation comes from the backend in the front end, resulting in smaller exchanges of data between the client and the server and much faster responses. React can be used against any backend as long as the backend has an API that JavaScript can consume. At the end of this course, after this course, we will see, in the Academy, we will see an example of integration of React with ASP.NET, but you can connect with Node.js or Go, Java, PHP, whatever you want. There is no limitation. So in this sense, React also makes it possible to build a front end that is backend independent. So you could have, I don't know, a backend that is built in WordPress with some custom extensions and a custom API. Okay, sure. And if later your application grows and you need a sturdier backend, no problem. You can move to .NET, you can move to Go, you can move to Node.js, etc. And a final note. Well, we can use React in the browser with JavaScript and TypeScript. JavaScript is kind of the low threshold choice, but using React with TypeScript reduces the number of bugs because TypeScript will signal errors. And whenever TypeScript signals an error, you as a developer are supposed to look into it, because TypeScript is never really signaling errors that will not happen. So yeah, increasing your effectiveness as a developer, reducing the margin for errors, especially as a beginner, is actually quite a good trade-off in my opinion. So that's why we're going to use TypeScript throughout the rest of this course to make you as powerful and as effective as you can possibly be. All right. We start by setting up our backend. Let's create a little folder server and a little folder client. Now the server will be a placeholder. This is not really a professional setup. It is very good actually if you're a front-end developer and you're building a mocked server just to serve your stuff, and you're going to mock all of your APIs and backend, so you don't really need anything sophisticated on the backend. Okay, now we're in the server and we're going to create a new Yarn project. We will accept all the defaults here, and now we're going to add a package in development. Well, and this package is the HTTP server package. All right. Now, HTTP server has been installed with a bunch of dependencies. Very good. We can see here that, well, there's only HTTP server. And now in the scripts block, we're going to add a script, which I'm going to call backend, which runs HTTP server on port 5000. I've done a lot of .NET development and ASP.NET, and so port 5000 in my head is like the port for the web server, but I mean, you can use whatever port is available on your machine, obviously. Now we need an index.html file. And what are we going to put in this file now? This file is the single page of our application. So we start obviously by saying that this is, an HTML file. Very good. Then we go for the HTML tag. I'm a big fan of 2 spaces for the indentation, but you do you, obviously. Inside HTML, we're going to have the head block. In the head, well, of course, let's add the title, and let's say, welcome to the introduction to React. Exclamation mark for extra effect. And now, very important, we need to put a script. And the script will be the beating heart of our application. And this file, well, I know already it will come from spa.bundle.js, which is the file that will be produced by a Webpack pipeline that combines all my TypeScript and React files into a single file that is ready for the browser to run. Can be any name actually, but well, SPA because it's our single page application, because you could also have other things like the SPA, but you could also have some other scripts in your application that you want to serve. And then this is the bundle, meaning that it's just, well, the bundled down files, because we want to have multiple files as developers, but the browser doesn't really care. And for the browser, one is actually more than enough. Okay, then in the body, well, we need a div with a special name. I call it root. Again, this can be whatever we want, but I call it root, or this could be SPA target or whatever. And this is where the whole React logic will live. So it will take control of this div, extend it, transform it, put stuff in it, under it, etc. And I'm also going to put another div here that says just hello, because I want to see something on the screen as we test the little server application. And finally, well, I have a script block where I'm going to run the main function that starts up React from our SPA module, which comes from the spa.bundle.js. So of course, this bit, and this bit are not active yet because we don't really have a client-side application that compiles an spa.bundle.js. So let's at least run the backend. Okay, port 5000 is being forwarded. Let's let's use a Chromium-based browser. I actually have Edge. I'm playing around with Edge a little bit, and I have to be honest. Edge, Chrome, not terribly different. Localhost 5000. Okay, we get hello. So that's very nice. So it means that, you know, the HTML file that we're getting is the one we want. Obviously there's an error because SPA is not defined, so when we try to run spa.main, this doesn't work, and this file is also not found, so there's other errors complaining that this file couldn't be found. Okay, but baby steps, baby steps. Okay, now let's go to the client. Let's go to the client. And here we're also going to run yarn init. Okay, this is all fine. And now we start by adding TypeScript as a development package once again. Let me reduce the size of the server thing because the logs from the server aren't really that exciting. Okay, now that we have TypeScript, we can call TypeScript -- init. TSC, so that we can also set up the TypeScript compiler. Okay, now in the client we have the package.json, we have the tsconfig .json, and let me take a look. Okay, so target will be ES6, then let me see. The module will be CommonJS. Yes, that's okay. Then JSX. There's plenty of stuff. Where is JSX? Because we want to tell. We want to tell TypeScript that JSX will be compiled for React. So whenever we see something like these tags here, like smaller than HTML greater than, in our TypeScript files, we want them to be transformed in such a way that would work for React. So this is what we're telling TypeScript, how to deal with this language extension in a sense. Then, do we want declaration files? Yes, we do, absolutely. Do we want a declaration map? Yes, we also want a declaration map. So basically, the TypeScript files contain types and the JavaScript code. So this will be generated in split format with a mapping between them, so that in the console we get errors that also refer the types we have. Okay. Do we want source maps? Absolutely, yes. So we want the generated files to refer to the original files in our sources. Then we know that errors will be signaled not in the bundle file basically, but in the sources that we write, because we don't know anything about the bundle, you know. Then out there, so where do we want things to be compiled? Well, we want them in the dist file. Strict. Oh, do we have strict already? I guess we do. Oh, how many things. So many possibilities. Okay, strict is true. Yes, very good. Then allow synthetic default imports. I don't see it. Allow synthetic default imports. Yes. Okay. Yeah, this makes type checking a bit smarter when dealing with the external libraries. Skip default. No, skip libcheck. Let me see. Yes, this is true. Very good. It makes things a lot faster. And the last one is yes, module interop. True. So this makes it easier. This improves support for CommonJS modules. Okay, very good. So we have a reasonably good tsconfig file. Yes, excellent. Okay, now. We need plenty of things in order to run a React application. So we import React and React DOM. So React is the core React engine, whereas React DOM is the extension of React that runs in the browser, because React can also run as a native application. Now, as a development library, we also want types slash React DOM. There you go. So we want the types in TypeScript that makes it easier to have IntelliSense, basically, so to get auto-completion around React. Okay. Now, I'm going to be lazy here, and I'm going to import a bunch of things. So, and I'm going to copy and paste this. Okay. I want Webpack, which is going to take our TypeScript files and condense them together into the bundle. And of course, it's not just Webpack, I also need the command line tools of Webpack. Then, Webpack runs with a bunch of plugins, and one of these plugins that I just imported is capable of processing TypeScript files, because Webpack on its own is just a bundler, but it doesn't know how to process all sorts of different files. In this course, we will see TypeScript files, but also SCSS files when we start dealing with CSS and Bootstrap later. Okay, then we keep importing extra modules. Yes, very good. And we finally also import, yes, another module which deals with importing source maps. Okay, now in our package.json for the front end, we also want another script. And what will this script do? It will run Webpack, and it will use a webpack.config.js file in watch mode. So this is where all the Webpack pipeline is defined, and in watch mode so that any files of our TypeScript project change, then Webpack will run again automatically without us having to stop it and start it again. Okay, so that's very handy. Finally, at the end of our package.json, we can add the Babel configuration. Babel is the core component of Webpack that basically knows how to deal with the how to load files into Webpack. And we say, okay, use React and use TypeScript. We're almost there. So much work setting up a pipeline, isn't it? Okay, so we create our webpack.config.js. All right, and so first of all, well, we need Webpack itself in this file. Then, well, we need someone to process paths. Okay, also makes sense. And of course, the main plugin we have is this fork TS checker Webpack plugin, which is just the TypeScript type checker that runs from within Webpack. Okay, then we export a main file. Well, first we check whether or not we are in production. Two spaces, come on, yes, okay. And we get this from the environment variables. This allows us, at least in more advanced or production ready versions of this file, to have different compilation optimizations for production rather than development. In production, for example, we can add some extra steps like obfuscation, minification, etc. And then, well, for example, the mode of Webpack is going to be production or development depending on its production. Then we want the entry point of our application to be the directory name where we are /index.tsx, and you can see that we're using path.join that combines this this path together. Then the target is going to be web, so we're compiling for the web. And what files are we going to resolve? Well, we're going to resolve files of type TS, TSX, and JS. And well, for now we don't really have a fallback actually. Okay, so these are the files we resolve. The development tool that we're going to use is going to be source maps, which is going to help us as developers keep the connection between the bundled file in JavaScript and the original files. And then, okay, let's configure the different rules. Now, so these are compilation rules. We start with only TypeScript. So whenever a file matches the regular expression of a file that ends in TS or TSX, then what are we going to use? We're going to use the Babel loader, but we're going to exclude the node modules because this is a gigantic folder where we don't really want to, well, try to let our Webpack figure stuff out because those modules, you know, are already done. And as another rule, if a file is JS, and the only loader we have is the source map loader, okay, so we just want to have the connection with source maps, okay. Then as watch options, we do want to make sure that the node modules are ignored also from for the watcher. The watcher is the thing that checks whether or not files have been changed since the last compilation, and if they have been changed, then we want to rerun the Webpack pipeline and recreate our bundle. But obviously, we don't want to look into the node modules because those are way too many files. And if we try to look into the node modules for changes, then the watcher is going to be incredibly slow also, and also kind of for nothing. Okay. And the output. What is Webpack going to output? Well, okay. First of all, if we're the file name, if we're on production, then it's going to be spa.bundle. And then the hash of the content, because we want different versions. But on the other hand, if we're not on production, that's just spa.bundle.js. This is quite important because, well, then you really want this file to change when you redeploy it to production. But on development, it doesn't really matter. Because otherwise, if this file is used on production, it might be cached erroneously on some clients, and then clients might fail to see a new version of your JavaScript file. Then, well, we have chunk file names. I've just included this for completeness, even though it's not really relevant for us. You can also split your bundle into chunks that refer each other. It's actually pretty nice, pretty handy for optimizing SEO performance by reducing the size of our bundle, and so actually not reducing, but reducing the amount of bundle that is needed by the client in order to start rendering, so that you lazy load the things that you don't need immediately for later. And where do we want to put all of these nice generated files? We want to put them in the parent, so in the server folder, because it's the server that's going to serve our client stuff. Okay, then these two are the most important ones actually. Where do we want to put all of these compiled, bundled stuff from our TypeScript files? We want to put them all in a variable called SPA. So that's why we said spa.main in our index.html here, spa.main. Why SPA? Because, well, so now we have covered two secrets. spa.bundle.js, we have it here, spa.bundle.js, and the name of the whole thing is this. And the library SPA is the object where everything is going to be bundled, and here it is. Now, of course, we still don't have a main, but stay tuned, that's going to come. Okay, and it's going to come after we have debugged all of the possible issues. Okay, then as optimizations, well, we only want to minimize the file, so reduce the names of the generated variables and constructs to like single letters and numbers, only if it's within production, but we don't really have a minimizer, so there is no real optimization here configured yet, because we don't care in this stage. And finally, we simply have to import all of these plugins. So we have to make sure that the TypeScript checker plugin is there. Yeah, this is the buffering plugin, and yeah, okay, these are plugins that you always need when compiling a web application. Okay. Now let's create the index.tsx file. So here it is, we have an index.tsx file. Why do we need an index.tsx file, you might wonder? Well, because I said we start with index.tsx. So the index.tsx is really our main file, and everything we refer from index.tsx will be bundled. So it's like a tree, and all the branches will be followed by Webpack in order to join them all together. Okay, now, and let's finally start with our React. So we import React, And do we need use state? No, we do not. So React from, oh, let me make sure that we have compiled with Yarn. Oh, there is something wrong with our package.json. Oh, yes, so unfortunate. Yes, okay. Okay, everything's up to date. Good. So, I was expecting the IntelliSense. Ah, yes, because the package.json was broken, and that's why I didn't get the IntelliSense. Okay, then we will import React DOM. No, not React DOM from React DOM. Very good. These variables are usually needed, and then we want to, well, not by us actually, but they are needed by the JSX converter, and from React DOM / client we import create root. Okay, create root is something that we will actually use actively. Okay, now let's define our main function. Oh, very exciting this. Okay, now first we find the root element, and the root element will be document.querySelector of root. And what will this root element be? Let's go to the index.html. It's going to be this element here, the element that we want to hijack for our React renderer. So the React will if there's anything inside that element, it will be emptied. Everything will be thrown away. Then, well, if we cannot find it, not find the root element, then yeah, that's it. We just have to show an error. Alert, cannot find root element, and well, then we just return the application fails catastrophically. Otherwise, we call this, oh, what have I done? This create root function from React, which given a root element creates this hijacked version of the root element, on top of which we can start the rendering process of React. And what do we give to the rendering process? We give a bunch of HTML elements or custom HTML elements built in React. Well, we will see that obviously starting from next lecture. And in our case, we can put hello world. Now, of course, this is not standard TypeScript or JavaScript syntax. This is the JSX or TSX syntax. It only works when the appropriate loaders are introduced. So we've done this, let me see, in the TS config by saying, okay, that all these JSX syntax that pretends that HTML-like elements are part of JavaScript or TypeScript have to actually be converted to the appropriate React format. Okay, now here we already have the front-end script. Okay, Webpack is running, nothing has blown up, and I'm very surprised by this. I was really expecting this to be a little bit more dramatic. We run it and we get hello world, and notice that the hello div has disappeared, but you know, let's remove garbage so this div here may actually go. All right, let's take a look at a couple of things first. So for example, here you can see that there's this SPA variable, very nice. You can see that a lot of things have been imported. So these are all the dependencies from React that has been basically just inlined into our file, so that we have a sort of snapshot of what does React look like now, so that we don't need to dynamically import applications. If I scroll down to the bottom of the application, you can see that SPA is assigned to these Webpack exports, and these Webpack exports, they take the React imported module. This is quite unreadable, but eventually, and here you can see Webpack require node modules React index, and then React DOM client.js. These are all the imports that we put in our application at root. But then here you can see our const main. Look, here it is. You can see our code, root element, query selector, etc. This is actually quite recognizable. But what you might want to notice, and this I find particularly interesting, is that where we put this extremely readable little div block here, actually, what Webpack has done, together with TypeScript, is invoke this create element function that creates an element of type div with a content hello world and exclamation marks, because, well, these HTML tags, they don't exist in JavaScript, they're just objects that need to be instantiated, and this is what React and TypeScript are doing for us. And then the result is absolutely stunning in its beauty. Well, maybe not stunning in its beauty, more like an ugly looking, very solid begin. Let's take a look again at all the things we've done. We set up the server folder. In the server folder, we have this HTTP server package. What does it do? It basically serves the JS, JSMap, and index.html files. That's all it really does. The bundle.js and bundle.js map files are compiled by Webpack, which knows, thanks to a series of plugins, how to turn one or more TSX files, starting from index.tsx file, into this bundle.js file. All the imports like React, React DOM, Bootstrap, even other files that we have here will all be condensed into a single spa.bundle.js file. The size of this bundle.js file can actually become pretty significant, so in advanced courses about React especially, we will talk about how to reduce the size of this bundle file. But in general, just be aware, there's a reason why we're told how big this file is. Oh my, 1.09 megabytes already. So yeah, minimizing it, making sure that it's unreadable, but also compressing literally the text inside it are very, very important things that we do need to learn at some point, but not yet. Okay. As we dive into our code, because this is going to be the place where we're going to focus throughout the rest of this course, is our first React Hello World. We import React, we import React DOM, and we import create root. And these are required by the JSX generator to know how to translate these divs, basically. But, well, we don't need to think about that for very long. Then we request the root element, which is the element with ID root, to be hijacked by our React application. If there is no root element, then we have to just fail early with an error. Otherwise, we create the React root, which is sort of this active hijacked element around the root element, and then we can simply say, okay, I start rendering this application here. And well, the application for now doesn't really do much, but starting from next lecture, it's going to get richer and richer and richer. Thank you very much for being here. I do understand that this feels like a lot of detail, but I really wanted to at least show you what is the meaning of all these complicated moving pieces. Hopefully you will not have to spend too much time replicating this, but yeah, also if I have to be honest, in real life, setting up a project like this very often is not something you do by hand, but I think at least once you should have seen what this actually means. It's been absolutely a pleasure doing this, but it's going to be an even bigger pleasure doing the rest of the course. So see you soon. Stay tuned. Bye bye.